Welcome to Holly's Pandorium, featuring your host, psychic medium Holly Jordan.
Hey everybody, thanks for coming back. This is Holly from Holly's Pandorium, and I am really excited. I get to talk to not one, but two people that have been in the paranormal and have seen some things and done quite a bit of work. This is Michelle and Brittney, and they are going to share with us today some stories that I have not heard. This is their first time on the podcast, so I'm really looking forward to hearing about their experiences with the paranormal. Thank you, ladies, for coming on today. I'm so glad to get to chat with you.
Oh, thank you for the invite. We greatly appreciate it.
Yes, thank you.
That's awesome. So if we can, I would love for either one of you or both of you to share with everybody listening and watching. How did you get introduced into the paranormal? What was your first time that you kind of went, wow, okay, maybe this is real. What is this stuff? Can you kind of go over that with us and share?
Well, you briefly said something. I started seeing the other side, I guess you could say, or dead people, when I was really young. Okay. But I wasn't seeing them as a lot of your psychic mediums see them, the really beautiful, angelic. Mine actually looked more like scary, creatures and different things. And I grew up in Europe and during that time, and you definitely didn't talk about it. And so when I had visitors at night, it was always like a nightmare.
Yeah.
So I was having to go on my own personal journey because there was no one to discuss any of this. And I blocked it for many, many years. And then at a certain point, you just can't do it anymore. It's
right.
going to come full force. It's a train wreck. And it was my journey of figuring out, why am I seeing it the way I see it? And what is that purpose? Why are they coming to me? What we found out, I wasn't supposed to give those love notes to the living. I actually found out that I'm giving the voice to the spirit themselves. So if they were wronged when they were alive and their story was not told, that's why they were coming to me, because they wanted people to know this is what the truth is. And so that's when my journey started, and I started getting into figuring out what is going to be the best way of doing it. My daughter will tell you her story, and then we'll kind of combine it of why we do things together.
If you don't mind me asking really quick, Michelle, how old were you when you started to figure out what was happening, that you were getting stories that needed to be shared?
Oh gosh.
You were young.
When I really started on my own journey,
yes,
was actually, I would say mid to late 20s, but was still navigating and wasn't sure, because I was constantly questioning myself.
Sure.
I would see things throughout all the time, but it was always, okay, if I don't look at it, it's not real.
Right.
And, just started going there. You didn't have it all over TV or how to protect yourself or what to do.
Right.
Meditation stuff wasn't really what they talked about. And, everything was all about the yoga and things like that. So,
right.
But it was one that I would block it out. Nobody knew, not even my daughter. No one knew. And the crazy thing is, we talked about not saying anything.
Right.
And then this is where I did some disjustice to my daughter, because when she started, it was kind of like, oh, that must be her imagination, because I was almost hating it for her.
Sure.
To have something like that, or seeing the things she was seeing, because I was still struggling on my path.
Right. So were you still in Europe at this time, or had you moved to the States?
In the States. I'm a military brat. So came to the States with my mom and dad.
Okay. So can you think of, now this is a big shift. So you went from being afraid and kind of denial and stay away from it and ignore it, to there's a reason for this. Can you think back in your mind and kind of connect what transpired for you to make that incredible journey to leap over to the other side of acceptance, and then maybe there's a reason for this, that's a big change in attitude, Michelle. How did that come about? How did you get to that point?
Well, when I got through with thinking that I might be crazy, because I really did, I'm
Well,
like,
yes.
this can't be real.
Yeah.
Then you started seeing, do you remember the 900 numbers for psychics?
Yes.
And
Yes, I
then
do.
they had, what was it, Sally Jesse Raphael show? And
Yeah.
I'm really aging things.
Oh, no, I'm right there with you. You know, Yvonne, what was it? Dionne Warwick,
Yes.
Psychic
and all
Network,
them,
la la
yeah.
la. Yeah. I remember.
But I would listen to a lot of them, and they were talking about it, like when they had, I'll tell you about how to lead your future, or we can talk to, your loved ones that you lost. And I kept looking at it going, I don't see that.
Yeah.
I see them like at the moment they passed.
Yeah.
I see them with the distress they had. And I'm like, how do I explain that to a loved one? It wasn't clicking. And I'm like, I need to start really looking into this. How will this make sense?
Right.
It has to make sense to me. And it wasn't like you could go into haunted locations or anything at that point.
Right.
So there was no outlet. And there was a lot of struggle, a lot of inner struggle. And just kept continuing to go on, and anything I could find, and just started trying to put the puzzle pieces together. And I'm not complete yet, because there's still new things.
Right. Oh, sure.
And so, but at least I know there are other people out there, well, especially now with my daughter,
right,
be able to connect some of those pieces, like, okay, wait a minute, there was that missing link. So we weren't just brought together as mother and daughter. I think she was brought to help finish that puzzle that we're supposed to, and continue this journey together.
Exactly. It's been my experience that a lot of psychic gifts run in families. And I've also found, I personally believe that everyone has the ability to sense things when they're children, and that we all get talked out of it at one level or another.
Yeah.
I happen to have been very fortunate that I have a great grandfather that did seances in Chicago in the 1920s and 30s. It still gives me goosebumps when I think about it.
Amazing.
And so,
it's like,
yeah. And so what you're experiencing, I went through something very similar growing up. It was very scary and shocking. And I didn't tell my mom right away. It just scared the beans out of me. And I couldn't figure out why I was seeing all these gruesome things all the time. I remember being a little kid, and you know how kids are afraid of the closet, or, there's a monster in the closet. I saw some gnarly ass people that had been through either drowning or horrible car wrecks. They were just mangled. And so now, I'm 61 years old, and I'm looking at them going, okay, well, they died tragically. They just wanted to tell me. So now I know I'm a ghost worker. I know that I work for them to help them move forward or just vent, but it's a different mindset entirely. So I can't wait to hear Brittney.
Yes, ma'am.
What did you do? How did you get together with this?
What did I do? Instant PTSD. Like, I've been troubled by my mom. Oh, goodness.
I love it. You don't know how lucky you are, my gosh, that you guys get to work together and figure it out. That is amazing. Good job, you two.
Yeah, it's been an incredible journey. It took us a long time to get here, but now that we're here, it's like full steam ahead.
That's awesome.
But we're going to rewind a little bit. So
please, let's do that.
Mine, I think everybody now in the paranormal field knows my story. But I was 4 years old, and nothing ever before this had ever happened. I mean, I always had this like vivid imagination. And that's what I thought it was. Like, I'm a little kid, and of course I'm going to have imaginary friends and this crazy imagination. So I remember being asleep one night, and I got woken up by like this, almost like a buzzing sound, like if it were a bug. Right. And so I remember waking up, and there was a fairy hovering over me. Okay. And I was like, I'm watching Disney princess movies at this time. So I'm like, this is just me being crazy again. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I remember catching it in between my two fingers.
Oh.
And I still remember like the feel of like, I guess the cloth or whatever that it was wearing. And mind you, they are not pretty like Tinkerbell.
Yeah.
I didn't know what it was, but in my mind, I was just like, this is a fairy. It's scary looking, but this is a fairy.
Yeah.
And I remember holding it and I was like, my mom is going to believe me. Like, I am showing you to her. And I was screaming for her. And we had in the house that we lived in. So it was like my bedroom. There was an attached bathroom and then it flowed into her room. So she's like right there.
Right.
And I'm like, mom, come in here. And then by the time she comes barreling through the door, it's gone. And I was like, how did that happen? And then I remember telling her, I was like, this happens, you know, however a 4-year-old describes that. I don't know. I don't really remember much of that conversation, but I was like, I'm not crazy. I'm not crazy, but I think I might be crazy. So after that, I think you had just told me, I would assume it's like, oh, it was just a dream. It is what it is. Because like she explained a little bit ago, like it wasn't something that we talked about because she didn't understand it yet.
Sure.
And as time kind of progressed, I started seeing dead people. I thought they were real. Like I would go into like panics even in grocery stores because, you know, I would see these figures, but they wouldn't get out of the way. They wouldn't, you know, but they wouldn't talk. I'd be like, hi, excuse me. And they just, and I'm like, what is this? You know, panic.
Right.
And then, so the older I got, once I turned, I think it was like 17, I really decided to like dive into that side of my journey. And then I joined the Army and I did it there. I did what I could overseas in Iraq and came back. And it was a whole new freaking world for me after that, especially experiencing what I did overseas.
Sure.
And we still really didn't talk about it. And we ended up going on like a little family trip. And we were in this insane, like haunted hotel. So this whole hotel was like built around a 300-year-old barn. And we were staying in like the old barn section. And I had seen a full like Victorian figure female in this mirror in our room.
Okay.
And I was like, Mom, like it's here, like this is it. And she's like, no. And I like, we had a come to Jesus moment.
Yeah.
Because I was like, no, this is what I see. I'm not crazy. And then that's when she opened up, we broke down together. And so then I went on this whole like spiritual awakening. You know, I was able to do like psychic mediumship readings, give love notes, and then things just kind of turned into other things. And now I see a lot of the dark.
Okay.
And when I say dark, it's not like I'm seeing demons and all of that stuff, right? But I see how Mom sees them. We see the same, but also different.
Sure.
But I do see them, how they have passed. And I now really can't like do readings. I never really wanted to do that anyway, because that's a lot of pressure on somebody. I don't like it. You know, unless like spirit comes through and they're like, you have got to tell them this.
Yes.
But I try to keep that pretty closed down because we just simply want to work with spirit world.
Right.
But yes, the dark does come to both of us a lot, you know, so we are the light workers in the dark. So we handle that.
Right.
And we just had a lot of time together, a lot of training to figure out how we balance each other out. What if she's doing one thing, then you know, I can open up or close down enough, you know, depending on what the situation is, who was involved. And then it just kind of clicked. And ta-da, here we are.
Awesome. And I appreciate that you're not only able to talk about it now, but in transitioning, Michelle, from being the kid that saw things to having a kid that sees things, your knee-jerk reaction was protect my kid. Don't see that. Don't acknowledge it. Don't say it's real. We go through a lot of that programming where it's in our culture. And what's fascinating to me is that we're the only culture that dampens that completely. If you want to call it a type of spirituality, let's just say that for conversation's sake. In other parts of the world, it is more accepted to have these type of gifts. It is not considered non-existent. It's considered real, it's acknowledged, and in some cultures it's even admired to have the ability to see things that are in another realm entirely. So our culture has some catching up to do, this is just my opinion, because we're missing out. We're missing out on some very important information. We're missing out on understanding some things. And I feel like we're starting to wake up as a culture. And I love that we can talk to people in Europe. I'm a psychic medium, and I do readings for people all over the world and have for years. So I talk to people in New Zealand. I talk to people in Africa. I talk to people in England, all over the place. And every state, pretty much. I've talked to at least one or two people in every state. It's everywhere. It's not going away. It's not a fad. It's not a trend. This is real life. There is a parallel existence to ours that we don't always see. And if by the grace of circumstance you're able to see things, that's for a good reason. And the fact that you're able to acknowledge that you're seeing dark things, that's okay too, because there's a purpose to it. There's something that needs to be resolved. And it doesn't mean, and I love getting to share this with people, it doesn't mean a spirit has to pass on in order to disappear. Sometimes they don't need to do that. They just need to be seen. They just need to be heard. They just need their story told so that they can calm down and get their energy straight.
Yeah.
You know, it's a whole different ball game. So you've obviously done some ghost research, and I'd have to say, so now how many years have you guys actually been working as a team together, do you think?
Almost, I think, 10 years as a team, but really hitting it hard because we have our own paranormal team. So we have worked that way, but more so as a mother-daughter duo, I would say the last 4 or 5 years.
Okay. That's awesome. So when you go into a situation where let's say someone has contacted you, this is hypothetical. Someone contacts you and says, we think our house is haunted, or we think there's something troubling in our house, stuff's getting moved and we hear weird noises at night, we don't know what it is. How do you approach that situation? I love people's reactions to this, because people that are having that experience are terrified that Ecto 1's going to rip in front of their yard with lights flashing, and then people are going to come out, echo the packs on their backs and scare the neighbors. And every ghost team I know of doesn't do anything flashy or outlandish. They come up very politely and respectfully and do their thing. So walk us through just a general idea of how do you handle a request like that? Someone says, hey, I think I might have a haunted situation. How do you handle that? What do you do?
Do you want me to go or you want to go?
You go ahead and then I can jump in.
Okay, so we actually have like a very extensive list of things that we do, If we get approached or someone messages us, which we get probably 20 plus a day, and so we'll talk to them, ask a couple like leading questions just to kind of gauge where we're at. And then we will set up an interview with them. And during that interview, we have, a massive form to fill out. I mean, even goes down to like their mental health and, what kind of medications are they taking. So we want to make sure we hit all of those boxes.
Right.
Before we actually like dive in, because you never know what you're walking into.
Very true.
Honestly, I don't trust living people. So, if someone's like, my house is haunted, come over while it's dark. Whoa. Hold on.
Right.
We got some questions. so
true.
Rightfully so. Rightfully so.
Relax.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But so we go about it that way. And then we will, if we think that it's something that we really need to continue with, then we will go to their house and then we will go over that whole form all over again to kind of see if their answers have changed and or add on to, things change every day with hauntings. So then we'll do that, interview them. We do a walkthrough and then set up investigation. Anything else?
No, the one thing we do different from a lot of teams, and we're not putting anyone down because everyone does things different. But even
they're all different. Yeah.
Even after we try to debunk everything for sure, because you do want them to be comfortable in their home.
Right.
And if we end up doing a house cleansing, we don't just go in with sage. We try to find out what it is. What is there? Is it residual? What can we do to keep things calm? Then we set up a certain cleansing, but we make the people who have called us, the family, do it with us. We're behind them, but they're the ones that have to do the cleansing. They need to take back their home.
Mm-hmm. Right.
But we found out that also gives them the strength as a family, and they become one instead of trying to be separated. And it actually gives that unity that you need to make sure this is my sanctuary, this is my home. It might have been yours many years ago, but it is not anymore. You
Right.
do need to move on.
Right.
And I think people seem to forget. We get so excited when they're like, oh, there's a possible haunting and stuff like that. But we also have to remember on the spirit side, if they're not there for free will, if something's keeping them trapped there because they're, unresolved situations,
Right.
it's not fair to spirit either, because they're in distress also, trying to get you to say, wait a minute, there's something in my house.
Right.
They're pulling their energy. So we're kind of helping both sides at the same time. And we make sure we go in doing that. And
I love that.
We do it all the time. And we always check on them afterwards. We don't just say, okay, this house is clean.
Right.
And then just disappear. We actually do check on, we make sure they can call us back. One house cleanse is not going to always resolve the situation.
Very true.
We might have to go 5-6 times because they're nervous doing that first or second one.
Right.
And then sometimes I've been on video and have them just walk with me and me not be there and make them do that cleansing.
Right.
And it now starts empowering all these people.
Right. But I appreciate the way that you're going through that, because I think there's a few things that people don't understand. And I like to bridge the gap. There's a huge gap that happens with understanding about spirits. One of them is people forget that they have spiritual authority in their own homes. And then there's the other extreme who think that they can boss spirits around without any knowledge of what they're talking to. I have a guest that was on that shared a story about a guy who watched a ghost program once and decided to verbally threaten an entity in his house and ended up going into a seizure and into the hospital in intensive care for 6 months. Mm-hmm. He physically got assaulted by this poltergeist to the point of almost dying. So there's a huge gap in there. You have to know what you're dealing with, and you have to deal with it respectfully. And I think it's so important because we have to really know what we're up against. We have to know, is this a cooperative spirit? And maybe they don't know why they can't leave. Maybe they, like you said, that's a perfect example, Michelle. It's like, you don't know why. And that's why I'm glad, Brittney, that you guys take so much time, because all of those questions are valid. They're all important. The background tells you a ton, because there's some places that have probably been haunted for generations. And I've noticed, and maybe you can attest to this, I'll ask and see if you can connect with this. I have noticed that when people remodel, they don't necessarily move into a house, but they can remodel their house and stir stuff up and not realize it. Just breaking open a wall or changing the wallpaper, moving a light socket. It can be something tiny. It doesn't have to be, oh, you just moved in or someone died in the house. It can be something small, and it just stirs the spirits up and the energy in the house. So I can think of a few examples of stuff that I've come across, but can you think of maybe a couple of situations that you were really surprised by in your experiences so far?
I would say, okay, so I'm going to go back just a little bit to kind of just touch on what Mom was saying. So when we do, these cleansings and whatnot, it's not always just us. We are humble enough, and there, we know, like, maybe we can't handle this,
Right.
So we have a shaman on call, we have priests on call, or any other religious affiliation that these people are comfortable with, that, that we bring in to help with that if need be. But I think, like, for us, it is working with the Catholic Church. I am not Catholic. I'm just non-denomination, but I did work with the Roman Catholic Church doing exorcism cases.
Mm-hmm.
My mother is a demonologist and exorcist. So I think for us, I don't know, I don't want to speak for you, but I would like to think that what changes us is working on those really dark cases and those exorcism cases and bringing other groups, other religious affiliations and other people in.
Yeah,
So.
no, that's smart, because you're right. We can't be experts in everything, and knowing to ask the question is half the battle.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you're a step up just being able to say, I know that I need some help. There's a lot of things that we'll probably never understand in this lifetime, but it's great to be able to connect with other people in the community and find those resources. They're valuable. They're really
we have
valuable.
no shame. If we're like, yeah, we can't do this. We can assist.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
But you know what? You got this one. We got your back.
Exactly.
Right exactly. Here, we don't ever go blazing in and saying, oh, demons be gone.
Right.
It's nothing like that.
Right.
We take this seriously because, again, when we're talking about the paranormal and we talk about mental health, that is the very, very fine line.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And if you don't assess that correctly, we don't go in and just automatically say, oh, you're crazy, because we know that feeling.
Oh, sure.
So we make sure we do ask, but we always say we're very straightforward.
Yeah.
We will not tiptoe around it. If you tell me, I want to know what all your prescriptions are.
Yeah.
And I need to know why you take them.
Right.
And if they ask, we let them know we're trying to debunk and move things out of the way so we know how to deal with the situation. Right. And people will tell us. And then we do, the background, read up on all the prescriptions. Is there hallucinations? Is there
night terrors,
depression, things like that. Because the last thing you want to do is push someone over the edge, and we just can't do that. And that's some of the pieces that I think part of the paranormal field does miss at times. And, it becomes worse. Just like you said, if we don't educate them, they're going to constantly be calling people.
Well, and I appreciate that you're taking this type of a serious attention to it, because a lot of people would be afraid to ask about medications, but I think it's the next level up. We have to do that. There are some investigators in New York that have shared with me that the city of New York has actually passed an ordinance. Homeowners have the right to sue ghost investigators now for disturbing the house and making it worse than when they get there. And
I haven't heard that.
Yeah, it made news. It made the news.
It's really, because it's incredible that it's acknowledged to the point that an ordinance could be passed for that. To say that the house is disrupted on such a level that it made it inhabitable, that type of thing.
This is like a win, but also a lot. I don't know how to speak that.
Yes, it's very bittersweet. It is, because you want people to be able to feel safe in their homes, but you certainly don't want to make it worse than when you got there. That's not okay either.
No,
we want to better people, and unfortunately, people have jumped on the bandwagon with ghost investigations, and I feel like probably in the next 8 to 10 years, it's going to narrow down. It's gotten very wide. There's lots of groups, lots of investigators, but I think it's going to get weeded out over the next 10 years a lot because of that very reason. You can't do anything half-assed. You have to really patiently go through an investigative process. So I appreciate the questions. The more, the better. I think that's smart. You got to know what you're dealing with. And so much can happen. Yep. I went to a spiritual training at this one church that I attended years ago, and it was all about spiritual warfare. And that's exactly what this teacher was going through, is literally, do you have a history of alcoholism in your family? Do you have a history of this? Do you have a history of that? And it was very in-depth, because he was explaining in the class that you can attract certain types of negative energy and dark energies because of your family's past, not necessarily you. Mm-hmm. And so I learned that the hard way. I had alcoholism in my family on both sides, my mom and my dad's, and I'd never been a drinker. And so that was weird. I did try it, of course, growing up, but I had to deal with that a few times in my life, and it's ugly. it's not great. It's a very scary thing that can get attached and hang around and really mess with you. And so I think that's great that you guys are being so careful. And so the next thing I kind of want to go back a minute. So because of the experience that you two had in growing up and having difficulty accepting what you saw, accepting what each other experienced, what would you say to parents in this day and age if their kids say, Mommy, I saw a fairy. Mommy, I saw a ghost. There's a weird man in the corner that keeps staring at me when I try to go to sleep. How would you deal with that? What would you say to them?
I nurture that. I have 2 boys, 13 and 8, and my 13-year-old is very, very sensitive. He was telling me, I think when he could talk at like 2, like, I see so-and-so, and he would see things all the time. And he would tell my mom, and for me, I was just like, okay, we will nurture this, when he's older and can understand it better, like, we can work on this together. But if you are scared, that is perfectly fine as well. Like, this is your timeline. This is what you want, what you're comfortable with.
Right.
So I know from personal experience, like, I'm there to nurture and protect him and teach him the ways if he wants to continue on. Now he's on our team. We have a junior crew. So he goes on investigations with us, and he loves the equipment and the science side of it. So
I love it.
So we try to teach him that. And now he's like, I really want to open up like you and Oma. And I'm like, more power to you. So let's learn meditation and journaling and, all these other crazy things, just to keep your mind straight. Right.
It's important because it's a whole nother world. It's exciting because it's not common. We don't do it enough. I'm hoping we get to a point where it's so familiar and people don't get so afraid of it. I feel bad for people that are terrified of it. It is scary when you don't understand something. The fear of the unknown is so large. Anybody that something new is scary, something unfamiliar is scary. I really hope that we can get past that so that it's more of an education for everybody to understand.
But that just tells me, the fear of the unknown, like, it's not that they don't believe and they're skeptical. They do believe in it, so I think it is, it's definitely well known and widespread throughout our country, even though we like tamper that down quite a bit, to fit this mold for everybody else. Screw that. I'm not about that.
Right.
So we're getting out of this box. So
right.
I kind of lost my train of thought. Sorry.
That's okay.
After an investigation last night, but
and a 6-hour drive. So.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that'll do it.
But
so
we get when we work with families too, and they have to understand, if there's children involved. When the children say they've seen something, the biggest thing I've done is take paper and crayons with me. And I let them draw what they see. And then I ask them, how does that make them feel? Because when they can start putting an emotion with it, then it's going on that path. And we do explain to the family, okay, the reason you might be getting this is because there's your little bright light. And they don't know that to stop it. And we try to teach techniques to them to say, this is not the time. You're bothering my sleep. Giving them powerful words, but also know how to do it respectfully so that they're also taken care of. Right. And, and we try to hit all those because like Brittney said, we do work a lot of the darker cases. Everyone that calls us has a demon attached.
Oh,
and so, we have to navigate through all of it. And again, when we talk darker side, we got to remember history wasn't all unicorns and fairies and all the happy things.
That's very true.
It was very dark. And so when it's showing us again what history is, it is dark and it can manifest to negative entities. And you have to learn how to navigate all that. And even families do.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. So in your excursions and your adventures, can you share some of the different things that you have witnessed and have you seen bipedal things? Have you seen more fairies? What other experiences can you connect dots with for things that you've experienced?
I feel like I've seen dang near everything outside of, well, I guess majority of cryptids, which I'm really hoping to see one day. Like I call on them all the time, please come see me. But I know for you, I mean, to talk about experience with no pemming.
What part of it? The nun?
Yeah, her eyes went black.
Mine?
Yep.
Yeah. So, more of the darker, the creepier they are. When I see, sometimes when they're that dark, they actually become creatures. They remind me of 80s horror flick creatures, like
Okay.
the Alien.
Sure.
And I could hear, like, what would you say? Like when, the slobber's falling and everything.
Yeah.
And it is a total crazy nightmare. But I
Yeah.
didn't realize that I can draw it all in.
Okay.
And when they're negative, I guess because my light, they say, is so bright that
Mhm.
when I draw those in, it becomes, you're talking spiritual warfare.
Sure.
We're butting heads.
Mhm.
Right.
And I can at times really channel that through me. And
Mhm.
people are like, what? Like my eyes will turn black and everything. So I become my own creature. And I know it's not like what you see in the movies,
Right.
but it can be terrifying. But there's times where sometimes you have to do that.
Yeah.
To get to what you need to do to know what to fight it with.
Well, to me,
Right.
I think you are the portal between worlds, I think that because she's a trance medium, I don't do that. Thank God. So that's all her. So it is scary to see, but it's also beautiful because especially if, we're dealing with a private case and or we're just doing an investigation in a big haunted location, and the location owner is having a lot of issues or other investigators are coming in and they're like, we know this thing is here and it exists and it's torturing people essentially.
Right. Right.
She is able to, she builds this whole block around her. It's really incredible to see. It's scary, but incredible. But she's able to pull that in. And then all of a sudden, all you see is like these rays of light. Like once she does like her weird thing and her eyes change, but then it's just like a blast of light. Like I would think of like a star exploding in the sky.
Right.
And we have had many times where like even location owners are like, I have had zero issues. Nobody's getting hurt anymore.
Right.
What the hell did you do? And we're like, oh,
yeah.
Well, we did it,
No, we just did.
Yeah.
It's like a second nature. It's just like you just know what to do. And to me, I just envision her as like she is this mediator in between portals. So that's what she does. So it's really cool. But
that's
it
awesome.
Does scare people because a lot of people don't understand that. There's this stigma on demons. You know what I mean? Like everything. And so when people are like, oh my God.
There is.
Your eyes turn black. And it's like, it doesn't mean you're possessed. Like, come on.
Right.
Well, it's so hard to get that word out. Luckily, we've been building that very, very well the last couple of years. So people are, really starting to understand. And they're like, okay, we really want to work with you. We want to see this. So it's like a sideshow, I guess. I don't know.
No, but I'm glad that you're sharing that, you two, because I've seen demons my entire life.
Yep.
I hear them, I smell them, I feel them. I don't go into a trance per se, but I do connect with them and I am able to communicate with them. And so it is something I don't get to talk to very many people about because they're not open to it at all. I have many friends who I dearly, dearly love and respect who think there's no such thing as a demon, only negative energy. And so I'll take that because that's at least a thread to the bridge of communication.
Acknowledgement. Yeah.
Right. It's like denial, but acknowledged, sort of. Yeah. So, but the thing is, when people talk about demons as they don't exist, it's like, then what am I seeing? I see something that's massive. It's got shape. It's got color. It has a voice. Mm-hmm. It has emotion. It is full of energy and life. There's nothing not real about it. It's as real as the tree it's standing next to. It's a real demon. And so I'm grateful to hear you guys talk about it so openly and candidly, because it's like, because that's one of my biggest treadmill things is that, okay, I got to get past that part. I love it that people say, okay, well, of course there's negative energies. There's mean people on earth. So of course spirits are going to be mean because they were mean when they were alive. So that's a thread of connection that people make with negative energy or negative ghosts. But that next step over, especially someone that's an atheist. Don't you love atheists? Aren't they fun? I just love them. I just love them to pieces. I'm non-denominational also. I was raised Protestant / Catholic between my parents. And so I've had a lot of indoctrination in everything. But I pretty much, people laugh at me. I have a lot of friends that are pagan. I have a lot of friends that are Christian. My pagan friends giggle at me and say I'm the only non-denominational psychic they've met, because I don't cling to one philosophy. I have what I understand and know.
Yep.
Because that's what I've been exposed to. This is what I can say. I know what I heard. I know what I saw, and I get it. But I have a great respect for demons because they have a role to play.
Yes.
And I'm sure that you can relate to this, Michelle. I have found that the demons that I connect with oftentimes are exhausted, they're worn out, and they are happy to make a change. They are happy to get released because they have been dragging around chains or whatever forever. And they just want the energy that you have. They want the light that you have, because that's how they eat. They eat our energy.
Mm-hmm.
Energy never disappears. It's a fact of science. Energy only moves. It never disappears.
Well, and if you're talking about, when we're talking demons too, you have to also realize, you have different sets of demons.
Yes.
Because one, when you have the fallen,
Yes.
they were angelic to begin with.
Right.
So they still have that power, that angelic power they had,
Yes,
but
they
now
do.
it's instead of the white light, it's supposed to be the darker.
Correct.
But then also you got to remember you have demons that were crossed over to that side that were actually humans.
Yes.
Those are the ones like you're talking about the
Yeah.
whole energy source thing, right?
Oh, sure. Yeah.
But people seem to forget hell was around a lot longer before the fallen angels.
Yes.
So those that were never on a human side, they're straight demons.
Yes.
Those are the ones that are your powerful, in charge, that take all the other ones that are like your little minions.
Yes.
Yeah.
They're like the mob bosses.
Yes. And
I like
they
to
don't
think of it.
understand that those are the ones, if you come across one of those, you might as well just hang it up, because here's the thing.
Yeah.
You're never going to talk with them.
Right.
They don't care. Those are the ones that don't have feelings.
Yes.
There's nothing. It's a shell, because they were never anything except
Right.
that form.
Right.
And so, we have to start thinking of, when you're talking things on the demon side, you got to remember, even the beautiful angels, there are still angels that did not love humanity.
Correct.
But they learned how to obey.
Yes.
So
and there's a big difference. Yes.
Huge difference, because angels can also act as a demon.
Yes.
Because they want you to do something different, because you're not supposed to come to that light. They think you need to go to hell. Again, when we talk about the fallen, they fell to being down there because they did not obey.
Right.
Or were humble enough. It was all, if you think about it, like in some of the different fields of what we do in life, ego was the one that manipulates. So
Right.
when we're talking straight demons, everybody says, it was Lucifer, Satan, and all that. Well, I'm going to tell you, they don't have time for you. They don't care.
Right.
It's all the other little crusty suckers down there that decide to make their minions.
Yep.
And you know what? Legion and all that. It's not like it's a whole union train coming to say, we're just going to mess with this one person.
Right. Right.
And so you really have to, that's what we kind of fumble through. It's like, okay, do you trust me? And are you ready for the truth?
Yeah.
And then when you lay it out, it's kind of like, here's how it is. You have these different levels.
Right.
And you have to realize what levels you're dealing with and what kind of power you have. And if you notice, just like the Bible said, you can treat everybody and mess them up like a rag doll, but you can't never have their soul unless they give it to you.
Right.
So they just eat on that fear until you
Yes.
want to give up.
Right.
And so we still have free will.
Always. Yes.
And you can always beat a demon.
Right.
And it doesn't have to be religious based. And that's what
Correct.
people are jumping to.
Right.
It is on something that you hold the dearest to you.
Right.
Whatever that you hold in your heart will beat that demon.
Yes.
And go from there. We have the power.
So I have a question that I would love to
my
ask.
soapbox.
No, I love it. I love it. So how many times have you encountered a demon that's fluffed himself up to make himself look so much bigger? And because of your sight, you then see them actually shrink to what they really are? I love that. That cracks me up every time. They show up all buff and big and looking really tough and nasty. And it's like, what? You're only this big. What are you doing? I can see you. And they're like, oh.
Yeah.
Well, and that's the thing, because they will try to manipulate of how
Yeah.
you see them.
Yes.
And they're always going to look bigger. We get a lot of them, a lot of people call them crawlers and stuff.
Mhm.
Ours always is more that slithery type
Yes.
of let's walk this kind of way thing.
Right.
Because it's that unknown of, oh God, it's going to slither through our legs. And so you get that, clench up.
Yeah. And you think if you're out investigating, you're expecting to see like a humanoid figure, right?
Sure.
And these entities are messing with you because they're like, I'm going to be as creepy as I freaking can.
Right.
Like, I'm going to
Yeah.
crawl backwards and crab walk and slither between these people.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that really freaks people out. But we encounter those damn near everywhere, even in like real life day-to-day stuff. And it like catches you off guard. And we're like, whatever, moving on. Like, you're nothing to me. It's like an everyday occurrence because it's gross outside. I'm just saying, like, I feel like they're everywhere. So
yeah. Well, and I found that they like to test and see if they can get you to jump. That's like their jolly. How do I make that person jump?
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I've seen so much. I don't jump anymore, but rarely. It takes something really, really off the wall to get me to jump. And so I do seances on Sunday nights, and I have some spirit guides that help me out. And I have this one who I love dearly, and I just call him Bear Man because of how he looks, because he's giant and has like this bear head on him. And anyway, there's been several times where a spirit will come up and they're just testing me. They're just checking me out. And so they'll try to rush me. They'll try to bum rush me. And he takes his big hand and he just picks him up and goes.
I love that.
It just cracks me. But then they're like, she didn't flinch. No, she didn't. She's not going to. So don't waste her time. If you got something to say, sit down and talk. Otherwise, there's the door. I just love that. I love that. So can you share with us a couple of demon stories that surprised you? Okay.
So we were doing just some investigations. We had 3 locations we were able to check out and stuff like that. And mind you, now this is daytime. So here's another, it's daytime and it's not 3 a.m. in the morning, right?
Right.
Because ghosts are only allowed to come out at night. Yeah.
So
hysterically funny. I love it that people think that.
So the night before we started at a jail and we were doing our stuff, but we noticed, we're like, okay, things are seeming a little odd. Now, mind you, 2 people were walking. It's after midnight. 2 males were walking with a child. He was what, 3? 3 years old. And I thought, this is kind of odd. But, so be it.
We almost didn't know if they were real or not. We were all like, are they real?
Yeah.
Or are we seeing this? Because it's like midnight and they have a little 3-year-old out walking around this town.
Right.
So they stopped because this jail is known to be haunted. And they asked us some questions. And we were just talking. And the little boy was saying how he fights monsters and kills them so they don't go under his bed and everything. And we were telling him, that is just amazing. You got the power.
Right. Yeah.
And he doesn't watch scary movies. He doesn't do any of that stuff. Okay. But again, we were talking about monsters under the bed, and he kills them like, I guess, werewolves is what he called them.
He's a werewolf. He goes, he becomes a werewolf. Yeah. Yeah.
So that's where this child's going. But we're just kind of really intrigued that type of verbiage from a 3-year-old.
Yeah, clearly.
Conversation keeps going, and this little 3-year-old walks up the steps, and he is just full power and stands in front of us and says, "Watch out, she's coming, long hair, black eyes, but don't worry." What was it? "The angels will save you."
Mm-hmm.
And we just kind of sat and we're like, oh.
And the father was like, I have no idea what's happening. I'm so sorry. Like, we've literally never heard him talk that way.
So we're just like, okay, we're not going to really play into this, but in the inside, we're ready going, excuse me,
Yeah.
you know, because there's nothing around this little guy to say, hey, is there something going on?
Right.
We're going to move ahead a little bit. So we're still trying to shake that off. And then he kept on, and he was so adamant. He was pushing his fist towards us like, you need to listen. You need to listen.
Mm-hmm.
Pay
Okay.
attention. You're going to need help, but they're going to be there to help you.
Okay.
We're like, okay. So at this point, we're like, this isn't just a kid making something. We really need to pay attention.
This is not a coincidence. He's not just being theatrical. Yeah.
Exactly. So our wheels start spinning.
Right.
So, yeah, we end up going to sleep. We wake up the next morning, and then we go to
The Jim Jones Church.
Was it Randolph first?
Oh, wow.
Oh, Randolph County Asylum.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we went and we just did a day tour because we just had time to kill. I run my events there in Indiana all the time. So I'm able to just, kind of get in, hang out with the owners and the caretakers and stuff. So we were just kind of wasting time. And some of the team that was with us had never been to these locations. So we are just walking through, and I don't really remember like a ton that really stood out to me there until the end when it was you and I, when we ended up telling a story of a female there that a lot of people have gotten wrong. And then we were able to kind of help with that narrative. And I guess it's been lighter from there, but we started noticing a difference there too. So we would hear like something running up on us, and then over all of our equipment, listen, I'm here, listen, I'm speaking, listen. And we're like, yes, like, okay, we're listening, but what is it we're listening for? We can't audibly hear it, but you're not giving us anything on our equipment. So like, how else do we have to think of a different way to ask a question?
Sure.
What is like that key word that will unlock everything so they will communicate with us? And it's just like,
Sure.
Angels are here. They're looking over you. Be safe. Listen.
Pay attention came a lot. We're like, okay.
So at that point, we're kind of on edge. We're like looking around. Okay, like what is gonna happen?
Right.
Like scary movie stuff at this point.
Yeah.
It's like super on edge. And, and we almost even thought like, okay, maybe this is a trap. This is a trap, because you got to kind of think of both ways. Yes, I will listen and I will pay attention, but like this could also be something else luring us.
Right.
To put our guard down so then it can come to us.
Right.
And then we moved on to the Jim Jones Church.
Okay.
The cult leader. It was his childhood church that he got started at. And we decided, Mom decided, we're going to do a little role playing because we had one male with us.
Okay.
We sat him in the infamous chair, and he was Jim Jones, and all of us gals sat up against the wall in this church acting like these crazy cult girls, like anything you say, what do we do? And all hell broke loose.
No pun intended.
No, like insane. Go ahead.
Well, just before we do that, the craziest thing happened. We were actually driving to Jim Jones, and we're trying to replay going, God, what is going on? It almost felt like we weren't in this realm. And I mean, this is where now we're going to go deep here. So hopefully listeners are going to keep up.
No, they will.
But we were feeling like, okay, are we on the other side of the veil now, per se? And are we going through something? And mind you, we had 2 other people with us too, or 4 other people, but they were kind of feeling a little bit like that. And I'm just like, okay, this doesn't make sense. As I look up, there was all sorts of clouds. They were all gray. One hole opened up, and in the middle of that, there was a gray, looked like an angel. Everything else was lit. And we're all trying to take our phones out going, this cannot be real. And it wouldn't let us take pictures.
My phone shut down and I was using maps. And it was just like, as soon as I went to like try to point up, phone died. And it's plugged in while the car is moving.
And we're like, but we're all physically seeing this, and you could see it. It was like something coming out.
Right.
And we're like, okay, is this their angels are helping us? We need to pay attention.
It's either a good or a bad sign.
We didn't know what was going on, right?
Right.
So we're at Jim Jones as we're going through. We have equipment going, and it just started a continuous over and over. You need to pay attention. You need to listen. We're panicky. Pay attention. The angels are going to help you. You need to watch. You need to watch. And I'm like, okay, this is getting to the point we're not able to investigate, because now it's like you just threw out this treasure map of what we got to follow. What's the end piece?
And where's our starting point?
Yeah. And it kept going and going. And I'm like, well, it's spirit. Something's talking through spirit trying to tell us.
Mm-hmm.
And at one point, all of a sudden, we get this voice comes over and it says, I'm a Ka. I am here. Kill the Jew.
So I have chills everywhere. Okay. So
hold on again. It gets worse.
Yeah. Okay. Wow.
So it gets worse, but then it kind of gets better. There's always a happy ending.
Yeah, that's good.
So, a lot of times on this equipment, you will hear stuff like demon, legion, 7, and it's just like a repetitive thing you don't really pay attention to because these are word databases.
Sure.
And I think that it will pull a lot of what they hear from the outside world in, it's just all that electrical stuff, so I don't always put a ton of trust into it. Not always, depending on the piece of equipment, right? So we kind of just let it go. And we're like, let's just keep this role play going and see what happens. Because stuff really started going off. Like everything was going off. It was insane. And we had one of the girls that works these locations all the time, helps the owner. She was like, I've never experienced this in my life. Like, this doesn't happen. We're like, sorry, or you're welcome. I don't know.
Yeah.
So it started happening again. And he came over and was just super gravelly, really dark. I am a Ka, kill the Jew. And one of our friends, she is Jewish. So she took that as like a personal hit, right? And so
I can imagine why. Yeah.
So at first we thought that, and we were like, you don't freaking talk to people that way. At that point, we're like setting boundaries. You can't respect us and get the hell out. We don't have time for spirits like you. And then it kept just nonstop. And then I was like, you know what? I'm going to Google. What does this even mean? I didn't expect to find anything.
Right.
And what did we find?
He is one of the major 72 demons.
Prince, yeah.
Yeah, he was a prince, but he actually gave himself. He used a samurai sword to do that, to give his soul, because that's what he wanted to do.
Yeah.
And we're like, wait a minute. But then we got to thinking, when it made those gestures, we were supposed to be in a church. We started thinking of Jesus. And as we were bringing the name Jesus in and all that, that's when more the kill the Jew, kill this.
Right.
It was linking to that.
So not a friend. So our friend was panicking. Mind you, this is her first ever paranormal experience ever.
Oh, good grief. Her first time out.
Though, she has not left us.
She's still here. She's obsessed with it now.
But
that's a trooper.
Stop, because again, we all stopped for a minute. Me and Brittney are like, okay, hold on. Everybody take a breath.
Right.
We've been getting the little boy, pay attention. The angels are coming. You're going to be protected. You're going to this. Right. I said, okay, so let's stop. We're getting all this information. Now this is coming across. Even though we heard something that shook us to our core, we have to look at it in a different way.
Right.
And so that's when we did look at it more in that biblical way of, okay, now we see what we're working with.
Right.
To me, I felt like he was telling a story with his battle with Jesus.
Yes.
So it's like he is trying just to vent and communicate as well. And
Right.
he knows that we see the dark,
Yeah.
and we obviously keep them at a very healthy distance, but
Wise.
it's like, okay, do we let him talk? Let's just see what happens. So we're all shaken to our cores, right? And we're driving back we had another overnight event at one of my favorite locations called the Monroe House in Indiana. Very, very, very dark. Very dark. I will just leave it at that. There's a lot of issues there, but I go there often because it's incredible. But yeah, all hell broke loose that night. Everybody was affected, and he was coming through at that location too. It was like he followed us. So at that point, we're like, no, like this is not how this works. You don't follow anyone. Like, so we were doing our like spiritual prayers, and we pull on other religions too, kind of like you said, like maybe a non-denomination. I pull from what feels right in that moment. I don't care what religion it is. If that feels right, and I'm like, this is what I need. Okay, boom, we're going to pull that out and we're going to use that.
Right.
So that's what we started to do. And then it came after Mom down. We were doing a session with 4 of us in the basement, and everyone else was like scattered around the house. And it terrified me. I legitimately thought she was getting possessed. She's like, I'm trying to get rid of it, but in that moment I was so worked up after the last 2 days that I was like, get the hell out of the house. Right. She started explaining what this thing looked like.
Okay.
We had no idea at this point. No one had looked anything up, because after we found out like his name, what he did in hell, how he gave himself, that's literally it. And we're like, yeah, we calling on angels, like, hallelujah, amen.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I bet.
Our friend Melissa, she's the one that helps with all of these locations with the owners. She was shaking, like, and handed me her phone. She's like, I can't read this out loud.
Okay.
And she never gets scared. Like, she's a badass. So what she explained, I literally read out loud. She saw a car to a T. It was insane. You can go on with your personal experience with that. I yelled at her like we were fighting. I was like scolding her like she was my child in front of all these people.
I get it. Well, it's intimidating. It was way out of a realm that you were expecting. And that's the thing about this that's important to stop for a second. You don't really know what you're walking into when you get into these situations. You really don't have a map and a guidebook that says, this is what's going to come, point A to point B. And then it's when you hit C, this is what's going to happen. It's a lot of unknowns that you're having to face. And when you can see them.
Yeah. And these are locations that I frequent a lot, being in Indiana. I host these events all the time. That's not something that we've ever encountered.
Right.
But I was just very upset because in that moment, she didn't fully know how to channel that to get it out.
Okay.
So that's where I was scared with.
Sure.
Because when we were in the basement, people who normally don't see anything, because we had a group and we have to protect them too.
Sure.
I could feel this thing starting to wrap around my legs coming up. And it was like, it was getting from behind and that. So it was like, like a boa constrictor, like a snake, right?
Right.
But when it was doing that, I'm fighting it. I'm not trying to pull it in, but I'm trying to fight it out.
Sure.
And that was the most difficult fight I had, because I'm like, I'm done. And then I'm like, no, I'm not. And I kept pushing. Then all the guests are like, I don't know if everybody else has seen it, but do you see this thing slithering around Michelle? And it's like starting to really push and close her up like it's going to crush her. And, what we do is like, turn your flashlights on, put it straight up. Let's bring a big thing of bright white light to break it.
Right.
And it was messing with us hardcore. It messed with other people. People left early and we were okay with that, but they thought it was the best experience they've ever had. They said they've never been so terrified because it was something real. I know, right?
Oh.
And we're dealt with that. So, you know, she thought I was trying to channel it in, and I'm like, I am not channeling that type of demon in, but I was fighting that type of demon. It was my spirit against him. It wasn't my physical body. It was, oh, here we go.
Yeah.
And all I could remember is different things. Pay attention, listen, do this. And I'm like, how does this all match?
Right.
Still don't have the full answer, but that was our most scariest, and we're still working on it because we've noticed in certain places, depending on how dark the place is, and when I mean
history of it,
the history, when we're talking asylums or nursing homes where there was abuse, this is where it shows up at, those types of places.
Right.
So we always have to be on guard going, okay, it's not possessing us. It's not stuck on us. We don't have a demon on us. Does that make sense? I don't want people to be scared, but for some reason, some angel, some demon, I think me and her are caught in between some type of warfare between those two, because we got them coming from both ends. Right. And we're like the physical beings for that.
Yes.
And I know it sounds so crazy, but I'm telling you, it is the most realest thing you're going to ever hear.
And we, you know, the people that we go with that don't have abilities or ever see anything, they're like, I saw that. Like, can you explain that? And we're like, we're still trying to figure it out. We don't understand, because we do feel the angelic side. Like, it is so strong, you know, but he is also there. And lately, and I know this sounds weird, and this is not me saying that I am, you know, allowing it by any way, shape, or form. He has been a protector, at least in one of the locations, because of whatever was there. It was like, absolutely not. And this thing protected our entire team from something that got actually really out of hand with a negative entity, not necessarily a demon, but something very, very negative.
Yes.
And I was like, so that's kind of been something we've like really had to take a step back. Why are you doing this? You know, I don't trust it. You're a liar. But I feel like there's also there could be another side. I don't know. We're still trying to figure it out. I have all these theories in my head, and I'm not going to spew them right now because it'll make me seem crazy.
No, that's okay. This is something we can continue off camera. But what I'm curious about is you were with a group of people, yes, when you did this? How many people were with you when you did this?
I think we had 10 total that night.
Yep.
Okay.
But these are people that always buy our event tickets. So like they're used to working with us.
Okay.
So it's not like what we do is not super out of the norm for them.
Okay.
Except that evening.
That's out of control. But we actually do, when we go to these locations, they pay to come to investigate with us. And we actually do straight investigations.
Yes.
Right.
We use all that. Just that whole particular day into that night. And again, when we left the next day, going to have coffee, we're all sitting looking at each other like, did we just wake up from a dream? Did this happen?
It was like a fever dream.
It was like all fuzzy and stuff, and still didn't feel like we have just jumped. Like we have been astral projecting this whole time is exactly what we felt.
All we talked about. Like it felt like we were underwater, you know, and it was like we had one foot on this side, the other foot on that side. And it was like this tug of war. And then as soon as we got in the car to head home, everyone was like, wait, is this real? Can you feel like it was insane. Yeah.
So I can totally speak to that. So when you're dealing with the realms and you stick your foot over the line and go into that other state, part of your brain is connected to that completely. There are different sensations. There are different visualizations. There are different connections that are made energetically, and they're at a different level. It's like when you're in kindergarten and you first learn to write 1, 2, 3, and then 4, 5, 6, and then you write the ABCs, and then you take a step forward, and then you're reading long paragraphs and sentences, and you're creating them in your mind. It's a whole different step into something you're familiar with. So you're familiar with visualizing things, acknowledging physical forms, acknowledging familiar sights and shapes and sounds and people and so on. And here's this other realm that suddenly is in your face. It's like incredible handwriting in another language, and you understand it for no reason that you can explain. There's all this new information in front of you, and you're going, I know what I see. And there's 10 people around me, and everybody's going, look at that, look at that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's like a unicorn could have walked in front of you, and everybody's going, did you see what I saw? So you are in another state of mind. You're using another part of your brain, and you're on another wavelength. So it does stay with you. And I think it's partly because you're switching on the part of your brain that can do that. Mm-hmm. It uses a different bit of energy. So it takes a while to come out of it, partly because we like it and we want to stay there. I know, speaking from experience of my own, I can speak for myself on this one. I don't want to come back sometimes. I very much enjoy being around things that are real in all ways. Mm-hmm. You know, that to me is more real than where I am, because where I am, I know this. I know my getting up in the morning. I know my going to bed at night. I know my dinner, my laundry, and la, la, la. This other stuff to me is just as real, and I enjoy it so much. Mm-hmm. You know, it's different. It's outside the norm. It's just more living. It's more experiencing, and I love it. I absolutely love it. And I feel like I wasted a lot of time not getting to enjoy it, so now I enjoy it that much more. Mm-hmm. It's very fulfilling, and it's to be able to share it the way you guys are sharing it is a huge gift. The fact that you're able to do things in front of others, that tells me you're getting the right people are coming to you. The right people at the right time are coming to your groups and doing things because it's time for them to get their eyes open too.
Absolutely. And I just want to say this again. This thing does not follow us anywhere else. It's literally only in locations when things get dark. Other than that, don't hear his name, don't see anything, don't feel anything. That's something I feel like I have to repeat constantly when people hear this story.
Brittney, you need a t-shirt that says, I do not have ghost cooties, or I do not have demon cooties.
I don't have demon cooties. He's not with me. It's fine.
You don't want to scare people half to death. Oh my gosh. Mm-hmm. You guys are too funny. I love listening to you talk. You got some great stories. We're going to have to close out our interview for now, but I feel like we could do this a lot longer. So we'll have to have you come back and do this some more, because
I love that.
We've got lots of stories we can share. That this is another set of conversations, and talking about demonology is a favorite subject of mine that I rarely get to talk about in detail. So I would love to have you girls back anytime soon and do this some more. Do me a quick favor for the people that are listening, to the listening audience. Can you please spell out for people listening how they could contact your group or reach out to you guys if they had a question?
Yep. So we have our Facebook page. It's Riverside, Iowa Paranormal. So Riverside, Riverside. And then Iowa Paranormal. And then our website is riversideiowa.paranormal.org. We also have our Instagram and TikTok as well, but we take a lot of our messages through our Facebook messages.
Gotcha. That is awesome. Well, this is Holly from Holly's Pandorium. And if you gals will wait just a moment, I'll connect with you off screen. I just want to say what my friend Jay always reminds me, please hit the like button and subscribe so that other people can get this content that they're interested in. And thank you all for listening and joining us today and watching. We're very happy to have you here. This is Holly with Michelle and Brittney saying thank you so much for stopping by, and we'll talk again soon.